What's going on, guys? Derek here from Williston Audio Labs. Recently browsing Alibaba, came across MBQ high quality 4-channel Class AB 600 watt aluminum valve amplifier. This looked very intriguing, so I went and found their website, mbqaudio.com, and this is not to be confused with MB Cort, former German company formerly owned by Rockford Fosgate, now owned by Maxonics. This is a strictly Chinese brand called MBQ. Here you can see on Alibaba, you can purchase between 100 and 1,000 sets. Low price of $24,900 for 100. And you can even have it customized with your own logo and your own packaging if you get more than 600. Now I must confess, I did get this amp from a friend, Tom, off of Facebook. He let me borrow it, and supposedly he's got the only 4 right now in the US. So thanks, Tom, for sending this out my way. You can see the specs here. We're going to go over those a little bit further along in the video, but overall it has some pretty impressive specs for what it is. Now here's the amp sent to me by Tom, and there it is. It's got the owner's manual. Everything is in English in the owner's manual, which is very interesting. Take it out of the box. You can see it's a very unique design. It has what looks like a big tube on the top of the amp, and it's really just a glass see-through. And there's a logo here, the MBQ logo. You have to take that logo off to get to some of the controls. On one end of the amplifier here is the only end that has the connections. You can see the speaker connections, the battery remote, and the ground connections. And then there's 2 fuses. These are 20 amp fuses, which are way underfused. We'll talk about that later as well. And then we have the RCA inputs for channel 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are standard RCAs, not the more advanced Tiffany style. All of the speaker and power and ground terminals are angled, and they're 8 gauge. You can see here you can also bridge the amp. As far as ratings go, 4 ohms by 4, 100 watts by 4, 2 ohms by 4, 150 by 4, and you can also bridge it at 4 ohms. It says 200 by 2. It seems like that should be 300 by 2, but anyway, we'll see what it does. As far as dimensions go, 14.6 inches on the long side, 10.7 inches wide by 3.1 inches tall. You'll notice that's a little taller than most car amps, which are between 2 and 2.5 inches in most cases. Here I'll show you lifting up the amplifier. Again, you can see how unique it is. It says tube. Again, only one side has the connections. All the other sides are just either blank or they have fins on them. Of course, the bottom is also blank as well. It weighs around 11 pounds, so it's kind of beastly for what it is. Now we'll get out the trusty old Allen key here and take out the 4 screws, and then we get the ability to take out this fancy badge, which is actually metal, really nice. Under that, we have controls for the crossovers and the gain. You can see frequency between 40 and 250 hertz. And there's only a high pass crossover here, no low pass, so this is designed for your higher frequencies. And again, 40 to 250 hertz on adjustable. It's 12 dB per octave. Also, the amp has a display there for the voltage, which is nice. And again, in the middle, it looks like a big valve or tube, but it's really just a piece of glass that shows you to the inside of the amplifier. We can see 8 tubes, and they're for preamp filtering. This is not an amplified tube amp. It's Class AB. Now, what I decided to do was do the sound quality test first. Let's see how it sounds. All right, now we're going to do some demo songs with the ELAC bookshelf speakers here. And the first thing to notice is, obviously, you're not going to get the full experience over YouTube because of compression and all that stuff. But I'm just going to play a couple of demo songs just to give you an idea. This is Luck Witch by Audio Hertz. This is from the YouTube audio library. Let's see how it sounds. To crank it on some music, I finally hear the fans turn on. On the tube amp, you can see we're right at 14.4 volts, feeding it from the power supply as well as the cap bank here. Sounds good so far. I'm impressed. All right, hopefully the fan from the amp is not too loud, but I figure the last song we'll demo here is the one everybody always wants to know, because everybody always wants to know where the trap is. Let's find out. We found the trap, because I'm always wondering where it is.
You big dummy.
All right, friends, now it's time to fire up the good old SMD, the More Engineering Amplifier Dyno, so we can test out the amp, see what it does. Before that, make sure you check the video description, pick up some Wilson audio merch, and also smash me a thumbs up. It's greatly appreciated. First up, we're going to do the 4-channel test. We have 2 channels tested going into the dyno. The other 2 tests are going into the dummy loads, or as we call them, the big dummy loads. These are 4 ohm resistors, 1000 watts. So here we go, rated 4 ohms, the 4-channel mode, rated 100 watts by 4 at 14.4 volts. We will be testing using the 1 kilohertz track. Let's see what we get. Oh, 126 watts per channel, nicely over the rated power, 14.56 volts. Let's reconfigure the dyno for the uncertified mode. Can we get more than 126? Yes, 134 and 130 at 14.5. Now we'll reset the dyno for the dynamic track, 1 kilohertz dynamic pulse. Burst and pulse put together, that's where that came from, sorry. 144 and 139 at 14.5 volts. Now let's check out that efficiency. And we measured 58%. This is a Class AB amplifier, so that's right about what we expect. Next up, let's try 2 ohms of 4-channel mode, rated 150 watts by 4, 14.4 volts. Certified test is first, 1 kilohertz. Look at that, 206 and 215 easily did the rated power. Check out the pull though, 77.2 amps, and we had 220 amp fuses, which is what it came with. Both of them popped. You probably noticed the test stopped, and that's because the fuses blew, so we had to put bigger fuses in. Uncertified test up to clipping, 233 and 206, again well above the rated power. And let's reset it for the dynamic test, see what we get here. And notice there's no lights flashing, which is kind of odd. But something else happened during this test. The amp actually went into protect. It says IH, which I don't know, maybe it's HI is what it's supposed to say. I don't know what IH means, but it just shut off. We just had to recycle the amp and it was fine. So next on to the 2-channel test, we're bridging the 4 channels down to 2. You can see here left positive, right negative on each of the opposite channels there. That bridges the amp down to 2 channels. Now it's rated 200 watts by 2, but according to the 2 ohm rating of 150 by 4, we would think 300 by 2. But anyway, they rate it 200 by 2, so that's what we're going after. And look at this, 344 and 330 at 14.44. So good power, but yes, we did pop the other fuses I put in, the 30 amp fuses, so we had to go up to a 40 amp. Uncertified test takes us up to clipping. Nice power, 374, 363. Digging that. Let's reset the dyno here for the dynamic test. And I may not have said it before, but these are 40 hertz tracks here for the bridge test. So 436 and 422. Nope, jumped up. 478, 474 at 14.44. Now, as far as efficiency goes, not so great. 47%, But again, a Class AB amp, we're not really expecting very high efficiency. Now we'll take a look at the dyno results. You saw most of the tests. We actually did a few different ones that I didn't show. We did 8 ohm stereo tests where we got 73 watts by 4. And we also did a 4 ohm bridge test at 1 kilohertz. And I'm going to show the difference between the two here. The 1 kilohertz test, we got 382 plus 366. The 40 hertz test, the one you saw, 344 and 330. Now you're going to wonder what's inside the amp. Tubes probably? Yeah, I would say so. Flip the amp over. There are 4 screws on the bottom that we have to take out. Once you take those screws out, you flip it back over and you have to catch the screws because they fall everywhere. Lift the cover off, and then on the back there is a small harness you have to unplug that goes to the top side of the amp, which has the fans as well as the voltmeter. I'll show that here in a minute when I swing over. You can see there's a little logic board here that controls the fans, the temperature, the voltage, all that good stuff. Here's a closer picture. There's some Texas Instruments chips on there, and there is the little harness there, wiring harness that has to plug into the other side of the amp. And here is the fake tube that's really just a window. It shows you into the amp. And again, here's the top side where you can see some of the different components there. Here is the little daughter board that has the crossover controls as well as the gain controls. And then we'll just do a flyover of the amp. And you can see the tubes here. There are 8 of them. These are for the input filtering. Also, it's a Class AB for the output. As far as the capacitors, 3300 microfarad, 25 volts for the input filtering. And then for the rails, 50 volt, 2200 microfarad. And we'll show another picture here of the tubes or valves or whatever you call it in your country. You can see it looks really nice. The board layout is really cool altogether. And I just dig the design. Obviously the power, it did great. And as far as the sound quality, I thought it sounded pretty good to my ears. I'm not a sound quality junkie, so that's why I don't usually talk a lot about it. But if something doesn't sound right, I tell you. Now we got the thermal camera here as well to take some images, and obviously around where the tubes were got kind of warm on the board. But I didn't measure anything over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So it didn't get extremely hot, but it got warm. Let's talk about the good stuff. The unique design, which is really cool, I thought. Built-in voltmeter. It does have high-pass crossovers, 12 dB per octave. All connections are on one side. You can get your own logo and packaging if you buy 600 or more. Great sound quality to my ears, and it beats the rated power easily, which doesn't always happen with these amps. A lot of times they overrate them. Things that could be better, the minimum order quantity is 100 pieces. That's $25,000 US. Also expensive shipping to the US. Support, who knows. It has a fake tube on the outside, which really is just for looks, and I think it's pretty cool. The 20 amp fuses that are included are way too small. You need to put either 30 or 40 amp fuses in there. And unfortunately, no Tiffany RCAs, just the standard style RCAs. Well, there you have my test of the MBQ AB4100T. Very unique, very cool amp, and unfortunately very difficult to get here in the US, so unless somebody wants to buy 100 of these and get them shipped in, I'm not sure how we're going to get more. But as always, thank you for watching. Appreciate Patreon supporters at patreon.com/oldschoolstereo. You know, have some other people to thank as well. Special thanks to Tom, Stuart, Travis, Jesus, Tomcat, T-Clock, John Hitch, Byron. This is Big D. I'm out of here. Alright guys, so the teaser for this week is a Down for Sound JP23 amp. This was going to be my test this week, but unfortunately took a little while longer for the amp to come in thanks to COVID and to the holidays. This remote bass knob, super sweet. It's got voltage, temperature, clipping, all that stuff built in, so I can't wait to try this out. See how it works, see how it sounds on the subs. If you guys want to see it, make sure you're subscribed. Big D!